All right, everyone. I'm very excited for this one. Today we have Dr. Melissa Sell. I heard of Dr. Sell, I don't even know how many years ago now. It feels like forever ago. I believe through Patrick Timpone, the late great, rest in peace,
Yeah.
One Radio Network. So yeah, I've been familiar with German New Medicine is what something she's passionate about teaching and sharing. So I'll just get out of the way and let you introduce yourself and where people can find you. And then, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks guys for having me. I am Dr. Melissa. I'm a chiropractor, so that's kind of my background. Was all things health, spinal health, nutrition, exercise, detoxification. And I thought I just kind of knew all these things about health until in 2017, I was listening to a podcast about magnesium supplementation, and the lady just mentioned these words, German New Medicine. And I was like, what is this? I've never heard of this. I've been in health for like a decade at that point. And I looked up German New Medicine and everything changed. Everything that I thought that I knew about health, about how the body functions, it just got turned upside down by this incredible discovery of this German medical doctor that I'm like, why isn't everybody and their mom talking about German New Medicine? Because this is absolutely incredible. When you dive into this work, you read this map, you read the chart, you look at the embryology and the brain and the experiences, and you start looking at your own body, and you're just like, whoa, yeah, that's how it works. And it works that way all of the time. These are laws of nature. And so, yeah, in 2017, I came across these 5 biological laws of nature discovered by Dr. Hammer. And then just I started to incorporate it into the work that I was doing, which is very much centered around, I had shifted away from doing physical work on the body, because after several years in practice working on patients and seeing that it's like, okay, we can change a lot of this external stuff in your life, the food you eat, the type of toothpaste you use and different deodorant, and we're doing all this stuff and you're getting adjusted, and it's like these things are wonderful, but certain things are staying the same about you. And it's like we could change all the outside trappings, but if we don't get to the inside stuff, and that's, my partner and I, we were already kind of working with people, getting away from the focus on the external physical stuff and more on what's going on inside here. And then when I found GNM, it was even more. We really have to look at what is going on inside. What are these conflicts? What are these experiences that are leading to tissue adaptations, changes in the body? Literal, what we were looking at as health, sickness, disease, it's not disease at all. It's adaptation to experience. And so, really my work now centers around understanding this biological stuff, but then mostly, how do I change this experience? Why am I conflicted about this thing I can't digest? Why am I stuck on this? Why, oh, can I get rid of this anger? What can I do about this relationship? And it's like these very human experiences are the thing that's behind what we're seeing as chronic illness, chronic diseases, is the body chronically trying to adapt to an unresolved situation in your life. And so that's kind of the big picture. And so I have a YouTube channel, my website, drmelissasell.com, is where you can, reach and kind of look into the stuff. The classes that I teach really are either about, okay, let's understand the biology, but most of the classes really are about, let's understand experience and how I can think and feel and behave and change my world, my inside and outside world, to resolve my conflicts.
That's awesome. If this was someone's first time, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. I guess give us like the Coles notes. I know it's hard because it's like, oh, it gets deep fast, I find, but like the Coles notes, Cliff's notes of what GNM is.
Yes. So GNM is Dr. Hammer's story. So Dr. Hammer, German medical doctor, who his son went off on this trip in 1978, and a tragedy occurred. It was a crazy situation. He's on a boat on a vacation with his sister and this group of people, and the crown prince of Italy gets really angry, and he comes out on this boat, he shoots a gun, and the gunshot goes through the wall of the boat and hits Dr. Hammer's son in like the leg abdomen area, and he's, you know, airlifted to the hospital, and his leg is amputated, and he's having all these surgeries, and they're trying to keep him alive. And, you know, Dr. Hammer gets the news and, you know, rushes to his son's bedside, and he survived for a couple of months, but ultimately he succumbed to the wounds and he died in his father's arms. And then a few months after that, Dr. Hammer realized he had something going on, and he got diagnosed with testicular cancer. And he absolutely knew there was a relationship between this huge tragedy of losing his son and this cancer. And he, a couple of years later, had an opportunity. He was the head of an oncology unit where he was able to access a lot of people who were dealing with this thing called cancer. So this thing going on in the body called cancer. And so he'd go and talk to them and say, okay, prior to your diagnosis, did something big happen in your life? Did a big shock happen? And every single time, the people were like, yeah, this happened, or that happened. And then when he got into the specific story, every man who had testicular cancer experienced a loss, you know, a loss of a child, a loss of a loved one, a loss of a pet. They lost someone big and important in their life. Every person who had lung cancer had some type of death shock, death fright. They were afraid that they were going to die. Every woman who had ovarian cancer had some type of loss in her life. Every woman with breast cancer either had a separation conflict or a worry conflict. And he started to piece together that the cancers that these people had were not random. They were very specific to an event in their life and the flavor of that particular event, whether it was a death fright or a loss. The body seemed to be doing something intentional and specific. And then he thought to look in the brain. It's like, okay, so people are having an experience. There's changes on the organ level. He thought there must be something going on in the brain as well as the kind of master controller of this whole experience. And so he looked at CT brain scans, which were relatively new at the time, but he could see that there were these circles, these ring forms in specific locations on the brain scan. In every time the man had, you know, the testicular cancer, the circle in the brain would be in the same spot. And so he'd get another brain scan and he'd see testicular cancer, circle in the same spot. Breast cancer, circle in a different spot. Lung cancer, circle in a different spot. And so as he's like this is all kind of coming together. I just imagine the movie remake of Dr. Hammer kind of coming to these realizations as he's looking at these scans and he's reading these cases, and like all the pieces of the puzzle are just kind of coming together. He started having these dreams of his son, and his son would come to him and say, yes, Geared, you're figuring it out. You're discovering it. There's still more for you to discover. And Dr. Hammer says, as he's like looking at this, he got weak in the knees as he's realizing, am I really seeing this, this is a pattern. This is how nature does it. This is what cancer is. It's an experience, a shock. This becomes the first biological law, the psyche brain organ connection. There's a shock. There's something that happens to the organism, because he found that this isn't just for humans, this is for animals and even plants, all living beings. There's a shock that happens, and a shock isn't just regular stress. It is a specific experience where it's highly acute, it's dramatic, so it's very relevant to your life. You're completely caught off guard. So it's an unexpected shock. You couldn't anticipate it. You couldn't have predicted it. It just kind of hits you out of nowhere. And in that moment, you feel totally isolated. And so when all of those components are together, totally shocking, very acute and isolated, the brain activates a biological special program. And so the psyche perceives the event that happens. And this isn't about your conscious thinking about the event. This is like your whole beingness, your subconscious mind, the part of your body that built you registers this particular situation has occurred, and it knows automatically which organ it needs to adapt. And so there's an impact in the brain. So it's like you turned on the program in the brain. There's a button, turns on the program, and there is adaptations that begin immediately. So this was all happening simultaneously. We have turned on a biological special program that is intended to help you survive. And so that's the thing too, is we've had this idea that cancer is an error. The body is screwed up, there's damage to the DNA, there's a fault in your system, there's something wrong with you that's causing cells to just reproduce out of control. That's what they say. Cancer is just an unregulated cell that's gone rogue, that is no longer listening to the body, it's just growing and growing and growing. But that is a hypothesis, and it doesn't make sense from like a biological survival standpoint. Like, why would either God put the mechanism of cancer in the body that's just gonna, kill you, or why would evolution evolve a mechanism in the body that's just gonna kill you? That doesn't make sense. But when we look at it from the biological perspective, we see that the proliferation of these extra cells is meaningful. The body's doing it for a reason. You had a death shock. I thought I was going to die. And so the brain registered, I think I'm going to die. I need a greater ability to absorb oxygen into my bloodstream, right? And where does the body do that? In the lung alveoli. And so if I have the ability to make my lung alveoli go supercharged, right? To go into turbo mode. Okay, we need to like turn it up. Those cells can produce more tissue, right? So what's the purpose? So that every breath I breathe in, I'm sucking in that much more oxygen into my bloodstream so that it can go out to my muscles so I can get out of this dangerous situation. That makes sense, right? That's biological. It makes sense. It's a survival strategy. If the body has the capacity to build these cells and to turn up the amplifier on these cells, why wouldn't it do that in a life or death situation? Makes a lot of sense, right? So if a man loses his offspring, my offspring's dead. I had planned on continuing my lineage into the future, continuing my genetic line through that child. That child is gone. What does the brain do? Amplify the testicles. What? Of course we're going to amplify the testicles in the man or the ovaries in the woman. We've lost the offspring. Biology says nature has to keep going, right? So what are we going to do? Amplify the testicles, amplify the ovaries. We have to do something to adapt to this unexpected, isolating, acute situation. Turn on the program. The brain has the ability to turn on these programs, right? And then when the program resolves, the body can decompose the tissue. And so when anytime you have a funky odor in your body, anytime there's like mucus or discharge, something's being broken down, right? Conventional medicine says, oh, it's an infection. Oh, these bacteria, they're doing something bad. They've made you sick. They've crawled into places they shouldn't be, and they're infecting you. Again, this knowledge turns everything we thought we knew holistically about medicine, alternative and conventional, totally different, right? We don't need to kill the bacteria with the oregano oil or the antibiotic because we're like, whoa, this bacteria, it's doing something. It has a specific job. It is a microsurgeon. Why would I kill my microsurgeons? Why would I eliminate this microsurgeon? What's it there for? It's there to decompose the tissue that is no longer needed. I needed it because I was in an emergency. I had a conflict, a highly acute, dramatic, isolating situation. My brain turned on a program. It built extra tissue. And now that tissue needs to be decomposed. And of course, my body's going to use the most intelligent little microsurgeons that decompose just the tumor, just the thing that's no longer needed, not the rest of the tissue that needs to be there, and this, again, is not even to say that that's healthy and the other one is unhealthy. The whole thing is healthy. There's no such thing as sickness. There's either adaptation or repair. Adaptation or repair. The body is healthy the whole time because it's doing something that is going to help you to survive. Then people will ask, well, why do people die of cancer then? If this is intended to help us survive? Well, the thing is when we're in conflict for a very long time, when we don't resolve our conflicts in a timely manner, the adaptations can be too much for the system to handle, too much for the brain to handle, too much tissue adaptation. And so there is a time limit thing. You can't just be in conflict for years and years and years and years and resolve that conflict and necessarily everything go back to, pre-conflict state, because there's been a lot of adaptations, and so there are certain details and nuances to dig into to understand about your conflicts and how long they've been going on. But in nature, we're not, the animal in nature is not in conflict, it's in conflict for a pretty short period of time, right? I'm either fighting or fleeing, getting away or dying. And once I get away, I'm not reliving it again and again. I'm not, necessarily going out of my way to step on the tracks that remind me of that conflict. I'm just kind of on to the next thing. And so that's why animals in nature, we know animals in captivity, right, have a lot more disease and issue because they're conflicted, because they're not living in their biological state. And the same thing with, humans in captivity. We are not living in our biological state. We live in a state of conflict all the time. And so that's where, so like the big picture of this is when we're looking for the root cause of sickness and disease, we have to look at the psyche and the conflicts that a person is dealing with. We're not looking anymore at the food. We're not looking at the external stuff. Yes, is there a role for good nutrition? Absolutely. And living as close to nature as possible? Certainly. But we're no longer like those were distractions, so if you've been down the rabbit hole of all the change the diet, clean this up, detox this, detox that, if only you just did this and this and this, then your disease will go away. I mean, I know people who have been on that merry-go-round for years and years, changing every diet, switching everything up, trying every supplement, every protocol, everything, and their symptoms persist because it's not in the external. You can change the external all day long. We have to look at the conflict. And when you get to it, and you have to resolve it. That's the thing, is knowing what your conflict is one thing, resolving it is another thing. Sometimes people will have these wonderful stories. Well, they'll just become aware of what the conflict is and automatically it resolves, and so that can happen. But if you're aware of what your conflict is and your symptoms haven't gone away, it's because you still don't have a solution. And so that's why you have to get really creative and curious and like seek, what is it that I need to know in order for my psyche to be set at ease about this situation? And so that's the big picture.
Take a breath. I think, like an example I've heard before is like dogs. They do it really well. Like, so I've seen it with our dog, like runs into a tree or something when he's too excited, or like they do something where it's like you pause for a second, you're like, oh, that messed him up. But then they shake, they do like a big crazy shake, and they shake all that trauma off, and then they move on. And I think Dr. Massey on Patrick's show would always say, it's not, you don't die of the disease, you die of the inability to keep up with the healing. And I think that's where the nutrition and the lifestyle all plays in, because if you're, the analogy that popped in my head when you were speaking was, you've got this old car, beat up engine, and you've been, beating the shit out of it for years, and you haven't done an oil change in like 10 years, and then you just changed the oil. Well, that's no guarantee that the wear and tear that's already happened is going to make it go another 100 years. So I think that example kind of plays well. It's, if you've had this trauma, and then you've been in the healing phase, and then your body can't keep up with all the repair that's necessary, eventually you might succumb to it. It's like, building you have a bridge and the bridge gets damaged. Well, when you run out of bricks and mortar, well, that's the end of the repair. And if that, you reach the point where like, oh, we didn't get all the repairs done, the bridge is still in critical condition, it could fall over any day. That's the reality of it. It doesn't matter how much, you want to whatever, nutrition and all this stuff, is eventually, you're going to succumb to something.
Yeah, and that is, and that is it. We want to support. We look at it as like, we need this wonderful, healthy body that is well nourished and well rested, and it doesn't have extraneous chemicals and toxins that the body's like, all right, I gotta, that just shunts your vital energy. And that's the thing, is when we want to just keep the vital energy tip top. So when we do go through an adaptation, that all of that vital energy can be used to, swiftly return to homeostasis following an adaptation. And so, it's absolutely super important. It's just, we just get it a little twisted because we, for so long, are thinking, oh, it's, if only, and this was my whole journey with acne, and that was my big thing for the longest time, all through high school. It's like, okay, so you go through every iteration. Okay, it's the bacteria on my skin. Okay, so I have to kill all the bacteria off of my skin every night. I would like like put rubbing alcohol in. It's like, yeah, if I just kill all the germs, the acne won't happen, right? And so even my best attempt to sanitize my face didn't work. I'd still get acne, and then I read a book that said, oh, it's milk. Milk, oh, it's bad for you. It's inflammatory. Cut the milk out, cut the dairy out. And it's like, oh, I'd cut it out. My skin would be better for like a minute. And then I'd still not be drinking the dairy, but it would come back. And it's like, okay, so it's not quite that. And then I tried, I did an 80-10-10 diet where it's like all fruit, 80, you're eating 80% fruit carbs and, I did that. I was like, oh, 30 days, I'm going to do this and my skin is going to be perfect. Wasn't perfect. And then I got on the, kind of more like paleo and eating that way and not eating grains. So you cut the grains out. The grains are inflammatory. Oh, but no, it's the gut health. Oh, I need more probiotics. I need to do sauerkraut. And I was like, my skin is a reflection of my gut. Once I fix my gut, then, and literally this whole time, it would be better for a minute. It would get a little better. And then I'd still be doing that lifestyle change. And then it would come back. And I'm just like, throw my hands up until this map says, oh, acne, that comes from the deeper layer of skin. The conflict is feeling attacked or feeling soiled. And it's like, oh, so it's an experience. So if my dog licks my face and I'm grossed out and it was unexpected and it's like really slobbery, oh, I could get a zit then because I felt soiled by that experience. Or if someone's like yelling at you and that's you're feeling really attacked by their words, ooh, my body builds this little defense shield. Oh, or I used to eat, I had an association with certain foods. I would eat certain foods and then I would get a breakout because in my mind, those foods were dirty. Like, for example, like eating at a restaurant with seed oils. I was like, oh, it's the seed oils. They're so inflammatory. But it was my association that I had made. And so it's like, I don't go out of my way to eat seed oils, but if I ever, have to stop at Chipotle and eat something, it's like, I don't get a breakout anymore simply because I no longer have that association. I don't go out of my way to feel, oh, this really isn't that good for me. This really is inflammatory. There's dirty oil, like feeling soiled, of course, or like even foods that, like, think about the foods like pizza face. Pizza's messy when you eat it. And it's like, it can get like, I'm just like, oh, it's the experience. Like eating a taco sometimes, it's like, you get it all over yourself. And so if you feel kind of like soiled by it, you can get a breakout and it all depends on you and your experience. Cause not everything creates a conflicting experience. Like my partner, the dogs just could lick his face all day long and he would never feel gross about it. He would never have a conflict about it. But I'm different. My experience is different. And so that is just one example of how, it's like we have to look at the conflicting experience and see, ooh, what's behind it for that person? Why did I experience that as a conflict? What's my story? What are my ideas? What happened to me in the past that kind of like set up this trigger for me because of an early life experience? Because that's all playing a role.
So I feel like I've been into the health thing for decades for my own personal background. Maybe we'll get into that later, but I love that there's so many voices and leaders in the health space, and I feel like everyone hates GNM because it's like like I'm guilty of it too, but like we build these I think we're very language and pattern oriented. So you come out with like seed oils or like, gut health, your inner skin reflects your outer skin, and then we build these like nursery rhymes in our head that we can model, and then they're not bad because they help create flourishing health in my life, and I'm sure tons of other people. But it's when you have these like little sayings that you can remember, almost like a old like 1930s radio commercial that you can just like repeat in your head, like. And then we build these like big things out of them, and then GNM just comes and just like trash. It's like the dark person in the corner just creeps out and they're like, no, that's not the problem. It just like messes with everyone's take on anything, like there was the no virus crew and like, that's cool. And I love all that stuff. But then it's like, no, it's not this, it's the GNM piece. And like, it's so funny. It just, yeah, I feel like it disrupts a lot of stuff. So people don't want to shine a big light on it.
Totally. Yeah, it is. It's very disruptive. I mean, it was, there has to be an openness and a curiosity about, because I mean, it disrupted everything. I used to like get up in front of 200 people and tell you like sugar is inflammatory. It is feeding your cancer. It's like, I would tell people it's like glass shards in your bloodstream, creating inflammation. It is the root of all your problems. Like you need to stop eating this sugar. And I was convicted and I believed it. And I was responsible for a lot of indigestible morsel conflicts and self-devaluation conflicts because, my patients, they wanted to do the right thing and they're like, oh, Dr. Melissa. And it's like, listen, hey, sorry, I, created it and it was what made sense to me at the time.
You know Adam Bergstrom?
What was it?
Are you aware of Adam Bergstrom?
I don't know if I know that name.
He was frequenting on Patrick's show. He's a fairly old gentleman. We're gonna be interviewing him in like a month or so. He's been around through it all. Okay, he's in his like 80s, and he's what's he call himself?
Contrary.
He's a contrarian of contrarians. So like whatever you're about, he's doing the opposite, and he's so funny. And like we have some friends and like the same spot you're at, right? And like you talk on Patrick's show, he's like, oh, I'm having like 8 cups of sugar a day in my 5 cups of coffee. He's like, oh, my girlfriend almost died, and thank God we had like 2 pounds of sugar and coffee on hand, and we cured her from this like near-death experience. And then there's these people who are like the health conscious, trying to be all this, and I'm having tablespoons of white sugar, and just to see like their kids looking at me like white sugar is the devil. Like we've been taught this is evil. I'm like, that's good for you, don't worry. And just doing all these things that like, they're like, it's fun to just like play with it and just laugh at it now.
Well, his thing is pretty in alignment with GNM, because when you're in the healing crisis, when you're like in the epi crisis, something like caffeine, or when you're like in this state of swelling in the healing phase, something like caffeine is really helpful in having the energy of the sugar to get through the healing crisis. Like, so that's pretty biologically oriented. And that's the thing about this work. And this discovery is like, these are biological laws. This is the underpinning. This is how everything does work. I mean, when you really observed it long enough, it becomes clear that this isn't just another like fad or another just, shot in the wind of like, oh, like, whoa, you don't do GNM. GNM is a reflection of how nature operates. This is how, like, this is the endoderm, this is the mesoderm, this is the ectoderm. These are the control centers in the brain. This is the experience that initiates this adaptation. It just is how it works. So anyone that's
happens, I feel like it just happens to you. You don't get to get to choose it.
Exactly. You don't get to do it. Like, you can live in alignment with it. You can learn it and live biologically in rhythm and harmony and understand how it works, but you can't not do it. Anyone who's getting well or helping other people get well, these laws are operating in the background while you think that the dietary change caused the healing. Like, there had to have been a resolution of a conflict. And that's one of the things I realized. It's like, because people did get well and they would come in to see me as a chiropractor, and I would give them a care plan, and we would work on their nutrition, and we work on their, their spinal mobility and their adjustments. We do all of these things, but it's like, okay, they would get better and they would lose weight and they'd feel, but it's like, something else was going on. And I realized it was the atmosphere and the environment of this support, feeling supported, doing something for yourself. So someone who's got chronic musculoskeletal pain and neck pain and back pain and all of these things, they had a new framework for understanding what was going on with their body, even if it was, what I consider now an incomplete framework. But we were able to help reframe the pain, and like with the adjustments and the things that we were doing, that was all an act of self-value, right? And so if self-devaluation is what leads to these, these adaptations in the spine, when we revalue ourselves, we go through a period of inflammation and pain during the healing phase, and then the body comes out of that track. It resolves that conflict. And so people would get well, but not totally in the way that I thought that they were, not because they were cutting out the sugar and aligning their spine, it's because something else was happening to them in the environment. And that was one of the things I loved about working and seeing people all of the time. And I would give workshops. It was just a very wonderful environment where it was conducive to feeling part of a community. That's a big thing, like with weight loss, when people feel isolated and alone and abandoned, like I don't have a place, and their kidney collecting tubules hold on to water. And if they come into this community and we have these weekly classes and you see me every week and I'm so excited to see you, and like you're feeling kind of part of something, you could just drop weight just like that because your kidney tubules open and you pee out all this water you've been holding on to. And so it's like the ways I thought I was helping people get well, it's like there were so many things in this at the psyche level I was completely unaware of. But now, knowing the map, we can go right to that, work on those things, and figure out how to resolve the conflicts. And then we can get adjustments because it feels so good. And it's wonderful to align the spine, and it's wonderful to eat healthy food and to source that food really well and to use products that you can read all of the ingredients and what it's made out of. It's like, yes, those are all wonderful things to do. It's just getting the context and the order of operations. Like I just see the psyche is upstream of everything. Everything else is downstream. If we're not addressing the psyche, we're not getting to the root cause. And this, goes into the universal principle. What's the universal law, the universal principle? All is mind. Everything comes down to it. We live in a mental universe. Like physical stuff is solidified thought. It is solidified light, energy moving through what? Through the consciousness. And so consciousness is the source of everything.
And so how would you support someone who's tracking a conflict themselves, and also supporting someone to track their own intuition to find the solution? Maybe this is what you do at awareness school, or yeah.
I mean, this is what we do all day long, and all of the program, it's all about, you have to develop awareness. You have to see, what is it for you? Just had a conversation with someone today. The track was around constipation. Constipation is it's an indigestible morsel. So an indigestible morsel is like a thing that's important that I cannot digest. And with constipation, there's a stuckness component to it. It's like, it's not moving forward. I'm feeling stuck. I can't digest this thing. I can't accept this thing. I can't process this thing. It's just like sitting like a rock in my intestines, and it's not moving forward. Okay, what's the thing? Okay, when did it start? We always have to look, when did it start? What was going on in your life? When you have constipation, what is happening in your world? What are your thoughts like? Because when you're compulsively thinking, when you're in a conflict, a few things happen. So this is the second biological law. The conflict happens. I'm feeling totally stuck. I can't move forward. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Stuckness. Hands and feet are cold. Appetite is lower. Sleep is interrupted. You'll like wake up at 3 a.m. like thinking about the problem. And you're stuck in this thing. And we have to figure out, who is it about? What is it about? What's the situation? How are you thinking about it? Why is this a problem for you? What exactly? Like, you have to use your words, like really figure out what makes this a problem for you and get clear about it and look at it. Okay, so this is the problem. And it's like, okay, what's the resolution? It's unique. And that's why there's no, just overall, this is how you solve all conflicts. Well, it's unique to you and what you need to work through that thing, to see that thing. So either we need a physical change, a change in the environment. This situation is not working for me. I need to leave this job. I need to leave this person. I need to get a different job. I need to make more money. I need something in my physical environment in order to resolve this conflict. That's the practical, biological, most direct way to solve something, is to replace the thing, get something new to make it so that, oh, okay, this is running smoothly now, right? If that's not possible, or another thing you could do is to look at it differently. Why am I seeing it this way? What's the story associated with this? What am I telling myself? Do I have a limited view of reality, right? Because that's the thing that causes a lot of conflicts, is I've got a very limited view of reality. And once I zoom out a little bit and have a broader view of reality, it's like, oh, when I look at it in context, that's actually not that big of a deal. I can actually totally work with that. And so that's what we're working with. When someone is on it, tracking a conflict, it keeps happening. I keep going through these bouts of constipation and diarrhea or whatever I'm dealing with. It's like, okay, the constipation is the conflict active phase. So pay attention when you're constipated, what's going on? What are you thinking about? What are you dealing with? When you have the diarrhea, that's the healing phase. So that's when you've come off the track. You know, and if that's happening all the time, that means you're constantly stepping on the track related to, you know, you're coming off of the indigestible morsel track. And so we have to figure out, what are the little pieces of this puzzle? How does it show up for you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? It's an internal game. And so the class that we do, Awareness School, is not specifically about GNM. It's more about like just this skill called awareness, the skill called paying attention to what's going on in my head all day. And so it's very helpful, but you know, knowing this map is so vital, because you need to know, okay, so, I've got recurring tooth issue. Who do you want to bite? Recurring sinus issue. Ooh, what stinks to you? What's annoying? Yeah, what's annoying to you? Ooh, I'm losing hair. Who do you want to separate from? Who in your life are you missing? You know, chronic shoulder pain. What relationship are you devaluing yourself about? You know, all of these things. A wart on my foot, separation conflict. Every symptom tells a story. Every symptom tells a story. And if you've been convinced, oh no, this is because of I need to detox from this or that, or it's like, okay, also let's look at the conflict. You know, let's just look at what GNM says about the conflict and just start to be curious about what this thing could be in your life. Even if you've determined, oh, it's a dietary thing. Oh, I just need to this. Also look at the conflict. You know, because that is because if you get stuck, and that's where I see a lot of people get stuck on the materialism, the material stuff. Oh, it's the toxin. Oh, it's the food. Oh, it's something in my environment. And if you get stuck there, you don't move into what's going on in the psyche, you know? And so I would look at all of those things. And yeah, make the changes, do the detox, change the diet, do all of that physical stuff. One, because it's supportive, but look at the conflict. What can't you digest? What are you stuck on? Why are you stuck on it? And how can you soften? How can you change your energy around that situation, or change the situation? And that's what will bring the healing. That's what will bring the movement of the bowels again, once you have resolved that conflict.
Well, you want to go?
Sure. I was just gonna, like, what comes up for me is really this piece around shifting and embodying myself and learning how to take more responsibility, 100% responsibility. And when it comes to health, what I often see is really people shifting into victimhood and trying to hero themselves with the detox, with the healthy food. There was a woman recently in labor asking me about a tincture. And for me, witnessing the experience, I mean, who knows if the tincture actually helped her, but that tincture was a hero. Whether it's a beautiful herbal product, you know, made with love and care, I truly believe, witnessing that experience, this woman was in a state of victimhood and was just using an herbal tincture to hero herself out of a particular state. And obviously that's a heightened experience, but I really love that, like, check in with myself with the food, the diet, the detox, where it's like, am I actually in a victim state? And I'm just using this to like try and hero this state of victimhood that's just kind of showing up. So I'm curious if you want to explain or touch on anything in that vein.
I mean, I do think so. All our lives, we've been kind of indoctrinated in the hero. We need the thing. I need give me the dropper of something, give me the pill. Like we're conditioned for that. And so, and the placebo effect is extremely powerful. And so I don't so I say work with it. I say work with whatever you got going on. And if a part of me is going to be so soothed by this magic tincture, go for it. Please take the tincture, love the tincture. Thank you, tincture. Wonderful. And so I say work with it, because again, there's a part of the psyche that does feel responsible to do something. It does feel like a part of the mind is set at ease. That part that's like, well, you got to do something, it's set at ease by doing something. Literally, even if it's a sugar pill, there's something that happens. There's a powerful transfer. And and certainly would we all prefer if we had the mental fortitude to not need the tincture, to not need the thing? Yeah, that would be more ideal, because that would be more inner, sourced from within, rather than I need this external thing. But it's fine to use the external thing. I mean, even in the case of if a person, I'm very much got to meet you where you are with whatever you're dealing with, so even a person who's like, people are a foot in both worlds, they're like, GNM makes perfect sense to them. They've seen evidence of it. They understand the law. They're like, they get it, but there's still that, but what about that little, but what about fear of, oh, well, should I take the antibiotic? Well, I've always taken an antibiotic. It's always done good things for me. And it's like, listen, don't spend too much time dithering in this middle. Just take it. It's like, just take it. If a part of your mind is going to be set at ease by taking it, does it make sense to take it fully from the biological perspective? No. You know, do you need it? Probably not, you know, like, but do you need it? Maybe, because if there's a part of your psyche that won't chill out, my motto is path of most peace. What is the path of most peace for you right now? If it's taking the antibiotic, go for it. It's fine. And the interesting thing too, you know, I used to have this very, you know, don't take an antibiotic, it'll kill your gut and your bowels will never be the same again. And you'll need to take you know, it's like, actually, one of my teachers said that the antibiotic doesn't even kill your bacteria, because like the bacteria, they just get deactivated basically. It's like it operates on the brain. And so the bacteria, and it makes sense too. It's kind of like perennial plants in your garden that just come back every year. It's like we can turn them off, right? We can go into winter in the brain, because when we take the medication, it just turns off their activity. Because they were active, they were doing something, and now we've turned them off. And it's like it doesn't eradicate every bacteria from your body, which is a good thing. And so that just is another reason to not freak out as much about some of the things that we used to think were never, under any circumstances, take any pharmaceutical ever. And it's like, if it's going to help you chill out, if it's going to set a part of your psyche at ease, if it's going to, you know, I'm just much softer on that than I was before. Obviously, like for myself, like, would I actually take these things? Probably not, but that's just where I am. But yeah, when it comes to the tincture, when it comes to the external thing, yeah, maybe you want to look a little bit at this. I need to be rescued. Oh, here's my savior. Here's my hero. Here's my capsule that's going to, you know, make everything better. It's like, yeah, are there things and plants that can soothe the system and that can support you? Absolutely. But the power it all comes from you. You know, you gave it the power when you said, yes, this is going to help me. And just in the same thing, nocebo, we can say, no, this isn't going to help me, and not be helped by something because of things we're typically unconscious of. And so we just want to become conscious of more of these elements, and that realization that ultimately this is all coming from me.
It's funny that you say that, because when we first met, I got an infection on my chest, and you know, don't buy the germ theory. Had heard lots of GNM stuff, and you know, okay, I put this on it, put that on it. It just kept getting worse, and then it's like, okay, I'm taking time off work because like I can't handle this. And it was in a big transition time in my life. I just separated. I moved into a camper trailer. So like all these big, and I knew like, oh, all these things, it's like, I know why, like, I understand why it's happening now, makes sense. But then like my chest had swelled up, like I was getting super sore. I was lying on like a biomat just to try to get my blood moving, and it was getting so bad. I'm like, okay, I need to go to the hospital. Like this is, and it was during COVID, and it's like, not the fucking place I want to be. Like this is like, it's like, it definitely humbled me, because it's like you said, it's like, do I want to take an antibiotic? Hell no. Like going to the hospital, to me, it's you know, it's like, yeah, it's like the biggest surrender ever of just like, okay, like you guys are right about everything, just please help me, take me now, like savior. But it was to the point where it's like, okay, like I don't have a lot of support. I'm living alone in a trailer. Like I don't want to die. I gotta go do this, because like it's getting to the point that like I can't walk. I'm getting unfunctional here. And then they lanced my chest, like this big old lance, stabbed it. All the pus came out. I ended up going to see Dariya while I healed. Like it was a thing, but it was definitely one of those like, I'll never take any about it. And it's just like, no, like I don't give a shit. Like now, when people say like, you know, it's there when you get hit by a bus. That was my bus, and I was there for the help. And definitely like the things went through my head, like, oh, it's like, okay, I'll have kimchi with it. I'll eat the kimchi with my probiotics, and I'll take this and that and like, you know, like I'm okay now. But you know, like yeah, the placebo, maybe it was placebo, but like I wanted to support myself through that as I took the antibiotics. And funny enough, what was it like? So we're in a fairly big city here, 200,000 people maybe. It's a big mining town, like capital of mining for nickel in Canada. So it's a fairly big city. I get the antibiotics. I'm taking them a few days, and then she lived on a touristy vacation island a few hours away from here. A lot of remote little towns, not a lot of population. So I went and stayed with her for, I think, like the week I was off sick, just so I could recover and not be stuck alone in my little trailer of abysmalness. And went to have the bandages changed, pulled out of the wound, and have it stuffed back. And I went to the hospital a few times, and there's this doctor, maybe German or Dutch, or like she had an accent, and she just plays shy, like not tell you where she was from, maybe very private. And she's like, oh, like, let's test it or something. And it's like, oh yeah, you're on the wrong probiotic or wrong antibiotic. I'm like, of course. You know, you're on, take these, you're gonna need these. Oh, this doesn't even affect the bacteria that you had in there. And then I'm just like, of course, it's all horse shit anyway. I'll just keep taking these for a few more days until I feel better and, you know, kick them to the curb. But it's so funny that to go through that experience, and how you said it's sometimes you just have to like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then it was funny because when we first met too, I think it was after that with the
My bladder
the bladder, like, so we, anytime something come up, I'm like, okay, give me a second, like, you know, we tried the top 5 things that I would like say, oh, this will help you. And then, you know, like when those aren't working, it's like, hey, let me check GNM. Okay, go Google it. Okay, like, well, let's read through here, like reading and scrolling. It's okay, like, and she had a bladder infection. So you get the whatever D-Manos, and you do all the things that you could do and touch and put on you and all that type of stuff. And then I'm like, okay, let's see what GNM says. It's not like, she's like, it's all working, like it still keeps going on. And then it's like, oh, okay, like territory conflict. I'm like, oh, well, you just met me, and like, like we just moved to this new place together, and like, oh, now you're not living where you were on the island, you're with me now. I was like, oh, this is all making sense, you know. But you don't want to, like, because I'm like reading it to her, so I don't want to be like, oh yeah, like this is your problem. You're trying to piss on me or whatever, like to fix your thing. You're like, you know, your urinary ducts are getting bigger so you can make more urine so you can mark your territory. But it was so funny. And like we've seen it time and time again. Yeah. Even with the breast cancer example, like I know someone who's the picture perfect example where their daughter, you know, 1920 moved away, like a couple, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours away, where it made visiting less frequent. And then yeah, she developed breast cancer, and then like the whole thing. And it's remarkable, like you said, like some people you see it, but then it's still like with that example, it's like, oh my gosh, like I don't give a shit. No, viruses don't exist. This doesn't matter. Like I need you to stab my chest and get this pus out here and give me an antibiotic like ASAP, because I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah,
I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say, I'm curious if you could give an example of plants. So how that show, you know, if this is the law of nature, of course you could extrapolate human to animal quite easily. What about the plant world, or maybe even like, does it work for mushrooms as well? Is it similar?
That's actually a very interesting question about mushrooms. I just know I've seen examples of cases of, yeah, like the plant had a trauma, and you can even see the ring like on the leaf, you know, so from the traumatic experience that the plant had. And so I haven't studied the plants extensively as far as how it goes, but I just know that there are examples of this working with the plants, which makes a lot of sense when we even look at, you know, like the studies they do on water and talking to water and how the water, it's all, of course, every living thing is going to respond with some type of adaptation, you know, doing its best to survive given the, you know, the environment. But with fungus, because fungus is part of the fourth biological law. So the microbes, the fungus, those are, you know, what come in to break down the tissue following the adaptation. And so, yeah, I would be curious about that one as well.
So how would you even go to like open your curiosity to answer that question, or to try and, you know, like how would you even interact with that question?
With plants and mushrooms?
With mushrooms, yeah, maybe mushrooms in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I would talk to my friend who does a lot of mushroom hunting and observes mushrooms a lot. I mean, I would just, it's just about observation, you know, it's about seeing, you know, is there, you know, because the mushroom comes in to do something, right? And so the fourth biological law is like the microbes are like microsurgeons. And so the mushrooms and like the mycelium, like what causes the mushroom to come up at the place that it does it, it's like, I would think that it has a job. I would think that it, you know, it comes in for a specific purpose given the right environment, you know, and that's like in the body, candida, you know, when we have a, you know, a fungal infection in the body, it's not a fungal infection. When you have toenail fungus, no, it's what it is you had a feeling attacked or feeling soiled conflict, which caused proliferation of additional tissue cells. And so that cell, you know, your skin got thicker in that area, and then the fungus comes in to decompose the tissue that's no longer needed. And so that's kind of how the fungus operates, is it's coming in to do a specific job. And so I do think that its role on the planet is different than like the plants, for example, so that the plants would, you know, be a little bit different, because the fungus will come on a plant, for example, if there's been an adaptation and something needs to be decomposed and broken down. But yeah, that's kind of how I would observe and see and pay attention, because that's, you know, that's what patterns in nature are made out of. You just have to watch. If you watch long enough, I mean, if you see seasons and cycles, like the nature likes to do things in very specific mathematical scientific ways. And that's the beautiful thing, is like, it's this math, like this is the math of the body. This is the biological program, and it's mathematical. It's really amazing.
What would you say to someone, because I've embarked into jiu-jitsu in the last 3-4 years, and people bring up ringworm, but it's interesting too, because it was funny enough, about a month ago my Muay Thai coach brought it up. So I did a lot of kickboxing in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, and no one talks about ringworm. But then when I got into jiu-jitsu, my mentor was like, oh, ringworm, you gotta be clean, like shower after every match. And then when I started training at a traditional gym, you know, they say, oh, like make sure you're washing yourself. And like people talk about ringworm. It's very interesting that with kickboxing, you get sweaty, you're punching each other, you're grabbing them by the head and neck, you're slipping all over, you're kicking them, you're kicking your foot into their face. Like you're not gonna get fungus there or whatever. But then in the jiu-jitsu community, it's like a big thing. They'll get ringworm. And I've heard the story, oh, so-and-so got their gym shut down because ringworm went around and it was crazy. So I want to know what the eloquent GNM explanation you would give to those die-hard jiu-jitsu folks.
I mean, it makes sense. It's a separation conflict. It's like, oh, something touched me here that I don't want contact at that location. And it's like, if something touches me and I'm like, I want to separate from this, or my, you know, I'm on this.
That's the whole sport.
Yeah, that's the whole sport, exactly. And so, yeah, so a contact sport where someone breaks out in some like skin adaptation, it's a separation conflict, as I didn't want to have that contact. Or I heard that there, you know, once we believe in the idea of contagion, that I can touch the mat, or I can touch you and I can get this bad thing. Oh, and I didn't wash, or I forgot. I mean, that's like the example of, yeah, like foot fungus is like, what, you know, walking in the shower without your flip-flops on. It's like, oh, it's dirty in here. This is, you know, like, and so, yeah, whether it manifests as, oh, I feel soiled or attacked, or I want to separate from this person, it's just a different vibration. It's just a different kind of flavor of experience. But with ringworm, it is about separation. Yeah, or like the sweaty mat, that could be about, yeah, feeling soiled or feeling gross. Just depends on how it, you know, how you perceive it and how the, you know, what the symptom tells the story. And so ringworm is, it's not even actually a worm. It's just the, you know, circle rash on the skin. And so it's separation.
I knew a suspect. My manager got it recently because he also competes in jiu-jitsu. He's like, don't worry. He's like, once you take the antibiotic, you can't spread it. Like, now I know the whole theory about ringworms horse shit. You can't tell me you got it. I see this giant thing on your arm, like, no, I took the pill, and now no one else in the gym can get it. I can't give it to you, but I can still train and do all this stuff. It's like, come on now. So bad. I guess you have another question, or
Yeah.
I'd really like to know. So in my GNM brain, it teeters a lot between, is this injury or attack or insult? I don't know if I'm saying this right, or is this the like what GNM embodies? Like, is this a sequence like playing out? So is this from, I injured myself at jiu-jitsu, or like I have poor postural alignment and therefore my hips hurting, or is this a psychosomatic thing that's been playing out? And a lot of times, because I'm very active and doing a lot of coals in the fire, sometimes I'll be like, is this something from in here, or is this something I've done to myself or has happened? Because I could smash my head into another guy's jiu-jitsu and it's sore on this side, and like it hurts to open my jaw the last 2 weeks. That I understand, but sometimes it's like, oh, like this thing's happening. Well, was that like the injury from exposure to something, or is this a GNM thing playing out? I just wanted to hear the.
Totally. Yeah. So there can be mechanical issues. So a mechanical issue is like an overt injury, so yeah, I bashed myself into something. I, fell off of something, like I had an injury and now there's a mechanical problem. And so you can have symptoms that are coming from the mechanical problem. Now the line is a little blurry, because when you fall off of something or screw something, you lose a match and you really kind of got screwed up during, like in the midst of it, it's very common for you to also have a devaluation about the fact of how that went. You know what I mean? So you could have had a car accident, like just a physical injury car accident. But if you're like, it was my fault, and how could I have missed that? And how did I not see that? I'm devaluing myself. And now that I'm injured and I can't live my life, if I'm like devaluing, I can't take care of my kids, or I'm out of commission, or I can't work, and I'm losing my self-value because of what's happened in the wake of the injury. Often injury and self-devaluation are, very closely oriented, in the sense that like it can be both. So I always like to look at both. Also, I don't think that any injuries are random. I think that they come at specific times in our life, and that I was in a state that allowed me to experience that injury. And so I always like to look at what was going on before, what was I thinking about when it happened, what is this kind of symbolically telling me about my life? That's not exactly GNM, but that's kind of like, I always think there's something deeper. And so, but just strictly from like the GNM perspective, if there's also a self-devaluation associated with the injury, and if it's not healing in a timely manner. So if something doesn't heal in a timely manner, if it goes on and on and on and on and on for a long time, there's a track there, there's a conflict there. Physical tissue should just heal, and in like around 6 weeks, it should be done. But if if you keep stepping on a track related to it, I mean, I guess in theory, you could be continually exacerbating the mechanical issue through something physical that you're doing. But I would get suspicious about a track, a self-devaluation. And really, it's like, again, it's easy to look at, this is just a mechanical thing. I just hurt my back and, it's just a knee problem from years ago. It's harder to look at how you devalued yourself because of this thing that you did, and how you weren't feeling, athletic enough. And, like, who wants, people are less willing to acknowledge the kind of deep, tender, inner conflicted state to themselves, because again, they've got an idea about themselves as being strong, and I just hurt myself. It's easier to say, I just hurt myself, I just injured myself, than to say, yeah, my ego was wounded, my self-esteem was bruised by that thing that happened. I started feeling less good at what I do. I thought women wouldn't look at me the same. I thought that, it's like, if there's something like that, if you're not willing to like, at least be willing and curious to acknowledge, and if you're not curious about it at all, I'm really suspicious about you. If You know, there's like, if you're not even willing, because some people they're very unwilling to write it off. Nope, that's what this is. It's just a toxin. It's not anything else. And it's like, okay, you know, if the lack of curiosity makes me wonder about your level of awareness about the totality of what could be going on with you.
Tune in while Dr. Cell tears my life apart here.
So when you're tracking a conflict, there's obviously a physical manifestation. You can track your thoughts, maybe like what thoughts come up, whether you're voicing them or not. You could be tracking an emotional response to an outer environment. Like what would be other pieces to that tracking? Because, you know, when I'm hearing your story too, there's this element of, there's so many pieces. Like I hear this a lot. Like, it's like, there's so many things to track. How do I isolate the root cause? So how do you guide people in that?
Yeah, and they're you know, a lot of times you've got a whole list of things where a person's like, okay, okay, the symptoms started, it's been going on for like 10 years. Here are the things that it could have been about. It could have been write a list of all the things, write a list of all the things. Think about it, meditate on it, just really like bring it into your awareness, you know, pay attention to in the moment when you have to scratch your head, or when like, oh, that thing flares up and you have to scratch it, or you have to run to the bathroom all of a sudden. What was going on? Just see if you can catch that thought at the moment, right when it was going on. Or if like someone sneezes, you know, this is a great, like when I hang out with all my G&M friends, like someone sneezes and everybody knows that person was just annoyed about something, you know, or a cough. It's like, ooh, that's somebody stepped on your fear track, or like a word was spoken.
The worst parties ever.
Yeah, right. And if you have to cough, it's like, ooh, that person was reminded of some type of fear. You know, if you have to clear your throat, ooh, a little scare frights. And it could just be a word that was spoken. Just it's a vibration. It's something that is experienced, and it's like, ooh, I just got that little feeling that I get when this thing goes on, you know? And so it really is, it's tuning into the biology. It's understanding, ooh, that's what this is telling me. Little twinges and little things. It's just like, oh, okay, that was a little bit of a track for me. That's, you know, it's very interesting. You can feel stuff in your ovaries. You can feel things in your heart. You can feel just a little bit of a, and you know, okay, oh, what, and you just get really, really curious about it. And then, yeah, with those big picture things, it's like, okay, well, often also, so nature loves patterns. And like when you have a conflict, let's say from your childhood that is unresolved, or it was partially resolved, like you're going to have kind of a pet thing, you know, something that tends to come up in your life, certain dynamics, certain situations, you know, how they say, oh, I just always attract the same kind of person, because you're in a certain state. And so if you always find yourself rejected from a friend group, or you always find yourself feeling left out, it's like, well, is it this time I felt like that? Oh, it's like, go back, see how far you can go back, even go into the womb. And when your mother was pregnant with you, how was she feeling left out? Was there something that you know, so these things can go very far back, but every new instance, you can observe the pattern. You can observe, ooh, I feel really rejected. I feel alone in the world. I feel unwanted. Okay. Oh, and you find out that your mother was questioning whether or not she was going to keep you when she got pregnant. And it's like, oh, no wonder I feel kind of like, do I belong here? Am I wanted? And just by bringing that into your awareness, oh, my mother didn't even know, she didn't know me then, like, but she had an experience, and you know, I bet that influenced me, you know, as a little tiny fetus. And so can I, through that knowledge, you know, see her in a different light, see myself in a different light, and then see these situations through a different lens. You know, maybe this feeling that I have isn't because there's something fundamentally wrong with me. It's just I observed, my biology picked up on a conflict and adapted to it. Isn't that interesting? And so, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can tap into, get curious, but really you got to pay attention. You have to pay attention, and you have to be interested in like your reactions to things. Your reactions tell so much about the story. It's like when you're offended, when you get, you know, when your heart starts racing, it's like, ooh, what just got me? What was the track? What did we step on just then?
I was wondering if we could play doctor maybe for a few minutes. So I think I looked it up on the GNM, one of the websites. There's a really good website that usually comes up when I look, and it's got like a search and stuff like that. So I've been dealing with tinea versicolor is what I believe is what it is. So it's a discoloration. It started like on my shoulders and then navigated down my arms and then down my front. At one point it was on the front and the back, and then on my legs. I did treating it from the outside always. It never worked. I think it would change from like a red to a white if I put certain stuff on it, or if it, I don't know if it like just changed states or something. And then we were living off grid for a year. I was trying like apple cider vinegar and yogurt. And then the one thing that actually seemed to help it was castor oil. And then like literally slathering castor oil and putting a long sleeve on and just like bathing in castor oil for days on end was something. And then it would go down and went down, and now it's like back in full force. And I think it was something to do with like feeling dirty, or I can't remember the exact description for GNM. But yeah, like where would you pull my threads out?
Yeah, and so this is it is a feeling attacked or soiled, so it's the corium skin, you know, looking at, so there's like hyperpigmentation during the conflict and then hypopigmentation, and so there's a track around feeling attacked, feeling soiled. And they also mentioned that thing on your chest, this kind of like pus abscess thing, like that's also feeling attacked, feeling soiled. So there seems to be, you know, something, and so we have to look at, when did it start? What was going on? How are you feeling? First, literally, okay, so is it the jujitsu? Is it the feeling physically attacked or soiled? Is it something that, you know, is happening to your body and you're having just kind of a reaction to this physical contact? Or is it words? Is it someone saying things behind your back? Like, where on your body is it showing up? Is it on your back? Is it on your arm? Is it more on your right side? Is it more on your left side? Your dominant side is your partner side, partner, father, friend, sibling, anybody who's not your mother or child shows up on your dominant side. The non-dominant is the mother-child side. If it's on both, it's like, okay, well, we have to look at aspects of both mother and child and partner. And yeah, like, when is it better? When is it worse? Yeah, like what recurring thoughts are you having about it there, or, you know, just in general, are you having compulsive thoughts related to an unresolved situation? So yes, it's going to be about feeling attacked, feeling soiled, literally or figuratively.
Okay. We can see. Yeah, it makes me think like I still have a lot of body dysmorphia. So I used to be overweight in high school. I lost the weight. Like I'll be in the gym doing jujitsu and I'll look at someone like, oh, he's like big, like that's a big dude. Like, oh, he's gonna be trouble for me. And then like be wrestling around, and then like someone will comment to me and I like realize, oh, like, yeah, we're the same size. But I'm like, you know, like I could be muscular and I'm like not muscular enough, or I'll be like, you know, thin, but it's not thin enough. Like, you know, I don't see the six-pack abs, and you know, all these little things like are always playing in my head. So there's a lot of that stuff too. And then so I had Wilms tumor when I was 2, tumor on my kidney. I went to Toronto, which is like 4 hours away, spent months there getting radiation, basically alone in the hospital, away from my mother and family. The radiation wasn't successful, the kidney was removed, and then that's been like I don't want to say crutch, but like a label that's like stamped on you your entire life of like, don't do martial arts, it's dangerous, you have one kidney, you know, you're broken, blah, like, so there's all these storylines that are constantly playing, and then it's almost like a safety net. Well, you know, I only have one kidney. If I'm having trouble with things and I'm getting frustrated with myself, I can like fall back on that, like, wow, like I've done all this healing and all this work, but like there's still the fact that I have one kidney and I had all this damage done when I was younger. So it's like, it's like a black hole / like, yeah, it's like so many different things feeding on each other at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a sense definitely of like, oh, a vulnerability. So again, vulnerable to attack, vulnerable. So yeah, like this feeling of there's something wrong with me. So there's probably definitely some self-devaluation tied up in there. But yeah, specifically with the skin, this feeling of vulnerability to attack. Because that's the thing is like, what's the program? The program is to, you know, create a defense. And then once the defense is no longer needed, it breaks it down. And so the discoloration is because of the adaptation of, you know, the pigmented layer of the skin there. And so it's like, why do I feel like I need this external defense, this thicker skin, you know? And so I think that, yeah, a lot of that stuff, you know, the self-judgment, because it's all inside of your perception that you're feeling and experiencing this. And so, yeah, I would look really closely at, you know, when, you know, do you know when it first started? Was there something about that, like something that heightened around that time for you with whether it was this self-judgment or like becoming hyper aware of something or this vulnerability, you know, with the kidney thing, it's like, okay, how is that playing? It's all playing a role because it's like how psyche is like perceiving the world. And so, yeah, I would look into, you know, this sense of vulnerability, this needing to defend myself, this needing to, you know, this defense against the world. What do I need to not let in? What am I vulnerable to? And really just getting clear, is this a real thing? You know, is this all in my mind? Like where is this, why do I need to perpetuate this story?
Yeah, because like money's always been a big thing for me. So like we didn't grow up with a lot of money and then never being financially literate. So it was always like money, constant money problems. And you know, like you almost create them yourself, you know, like you don't make a lot of money, then you're bad with your money. And then it's just like goes on. So I know like that's a big part, like where it was always in my consciousness, just like you almost like ignore it. And then it turns into a big beast that you have to battle. And then even with fighting, like I'd be fighting doing kickboxing, but it was never like I was never the confident, like, yeah, like fighter, I'll kick your ass. It was always like the laid back, like, oh, I'm gonna see how this play. Like I'm not a in your face fighter. I'm a counter fighter, so I'm like wait to react and see where my opening is. So it's very funny how you said that. Like it's still like a vulnerability thing. It's not like I'm just walking forward with pure confidence. It's like I'm gonna lay back, see where I stand here, see where I can, you know, get in here. But it was never the yeah, all the things you're saying. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is all like, yes, check mark. Okay, Melissa said this, check mark. Okay, yes, check mark.
There's always, that's the thing is the biology, it has no choice but to just tell the story, you know, and that's the thing is you have to kind of read between the lines is like, okay, what's the story for me? And it's like the tissue is explaining this to us. And now you have to look in my experience, how is this showing up for me? And then you'll see it. You'll see yourself in the symptoms, in the symbolism, like the biological symbolism. It's like, it's so meaningful. Like the body doesn't do anything without a purpose. That's the fifth biological law. There is nothing meaningless in nature. There's always a rhyme and a reason and a purpose and a function to everything that the body does. And so, you know, when you understand that, you're get really curious. It's like, okay, why would my body build this here at this location? What did I experience? What's ongoing for me here? What's the story? And when you understand the story and get it, and you're like, oh, when the subconscious mind realizes that this conflict, it can't happen again, you know, that a conflict is resolved when it can't happen again, when what happened then can't happen now. This is why kids grow out of allergies or like asthma. They're like, oh, I used to have it all the time, but then, you know, I haven't had it in years. It's like I grew out of it. It's because you probably lived in your parents' house, developed a lot of your symptoms in that environment of living in your parents' house. And then when you got out, you're like, oh, I can never be grounded again. I can never be restricted from, you know, video games again. I can, like, it's just, you don't even need to have a conscious realization of it. It just, a part of you knows that chapter is done. And so all of the symptoms and tracks associated with whatever that dynamic was, they just close out. You know, if they've persisted, you know, then you can bring conscious awareness to it and realize, oh, that can never happen again. And then that could be the thing that causes it to resolve.
Yeah, because I find I get frustrated because I've had experiences in the past, and Patrick was a big part of my growth and awakening because I was a very angry youth, and a lot of my upbringing and stuff with parental relationships with my mother not being present, or not knowing my father, or knowing him as a person, but like with a story being told of like he doesn't want to be in your life. So I had all this like anger and like definitely liver issues. My grandfather died from liver cancer, and he was an angry old man all the time. Got jaundice at the end. Is like, okay, like, is this literally like his organs screaming out in his skin to show you? But like had all the, and then what would happen is listening to Patrick and having these different people with different takes and explanations and their own personal stories. I'd have epiphanies, and then these stories you tell yourself, or guilt trips you give yourself, or excuses would dissolve, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, I'm not angry at this person anymore. I'm like, I feel bad for them. Like, I'm so blessed and so lucky. So what I would find frustrating sometimes with the GNM stuff is it's, you read it and you're like, hey, I get it, but you're not getting this like dopamine release, like epiphany, where it's like, oh, that's where my tinea versicolor is coming from. It's because, you know, XYZ, I've devalued myself. Where like with other things, it's like you hear someone's story and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not their fault. Like, I'm so lucky I am the way I am, and I'm blessed that it happened this way. And then like, you know, you forgive yourself for these past stories, and in moments like that, it's like little examples or metaphors that people can give can change your whole life, or your outlook on your past life changing your future life, and how you act and think about the people you care about or people who have wronged you. And then with GNM, maybe it's harder for me because it's me I have to forgive, or so it's like I don't get these epiphanies with it sometimes, and I'm like, you know. And with something like with her bladder infection or urinary tract infection, is like, oh yeah, like it's a territory thing. You change territories, you met me, you want to mark your territory, you want to mark me, blah blah blah. And it's like, it's so clear, it's so obvious. And then with me, it's like, oh, my problem, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah, that's the blind spot, and that it is. It's harder to see the things within yourself because it's like you're just awash in your own experience. And so, yeah, it's like, of course, I see it this way because I see it this way because I've always seen it this way. And so, you know, that's what like awareness it is. It's easier to see it in someone else. It's easier to pick it out and say, aha, this is your thing, and it makes perfect sense to you. And it's like, yeah, so you do have to, and that's what awareness is. It's developing that about seeing yourself, though.
It's funny too, because it's when you mentioned that in the intro, it was funny. I'm like, what a juxtaposition, because in a way, our whole thing of retreats and hosting, a lot of our stuff is to take your awareness out of here and to be aware of nature, your surroundings, what's available, being in touch with everything out there. And it's so funny. It's like, oh, it's so interesting. Like, our whole thing is getting you out of here, not necessarily out of here, but getting your awareness on everything that's around you. And then you're like, oh, it's all about bringing your awareness. And like, that's so interesting.
That stood out for me
I was
as
like,
well too.
oh, like what a like wicked little parable there of like to do the healing in here, but also like you said, it's like if there's a leaf out there that's gonna make it 100 times easier on you as you go through that healing, yeah, by all means, freaking do it. You know, like, but also at the same time, it's, and then you were saying something earlier, oh, with like the injury or the chemical poisoning or whatever it might be, and like what's GNM and what's the injury piece. And the metaphor that came to me was like, yeah, like you can't separate the fish and the water, because then you get to the scientism piece of like, oh, we'll take the fish out of the water. We cut a fish has a bladder in here, and it's got a fin, it's got this, it's got lips, and like we're just dissecting it. But it's like, oh, we don't know how it moves. Like, yeah, look, a stupid fish, it just flops around. Okay, how does it even survive out here? It's like, well, you're not seeing it in its natural environment. And then it makes me think of like, it's about all the awareness out there, but then also in here. You can't separate the two. They have to be functioning at all times, like a yin and yang. And yeah, then my head just explodes.
So good. Yeah. And I think that because a lot of people are in here in a destructive way. And so I think that the getting your attention on your surroundings is it's very biological, because that's the thing is a lot of people they're in their head, but not in a curious, resourceful way, but in a, condemning, frustrated, oh, I can't figure this out kind of way. And so it's like, I think it's a wonderful thing to get into nature. I mean, because so many of our conflicts, they are resolved just intuitively. And so but how do you access your intuition? You do have to quiet the mind by busying yourself with like practical, your instincts, with your intuition. And so when you can learn how to interact with the land and how to, survive in the way and pay attention to your surroundings, like that just kind of taps you into a certain frequency of resourcefulness and solutions. And so like that is super helpful, for the developing of the kind of awareness that's actually going to help you to break out of things, so it's like, oh, I can see, solutions here, and you open up your psyche to solutions to the internal stuff. And so, yeah, most people really do need to get out of their heads. They're in here, but they're not working in a way that's useful. They're working in a very self-destructive way.
Well, maybe we can close with this question or concept of, your journey with GNM. Like, are you, or is one, when they work with this awareness, is it that we'll always be meeting conflicts and we just learn how to integrate, move, or this idea that maybe the conflicts are just less frequent, less loud, and they start to slow down? So if someone is like on this path and working with this, like what is like a good way of it looking like it's moving forward well or progressing, that you're actually addressing the root cause, and that you're not just playing games with yourself?
Yeah, I mean, conflict is going to happen. I mean, it's part of life. It's like part of the evolutionary process. It's like, I need an obstacle. Like if life was easy and perfect and no conflicts ever happened and no one needed to adapt and overcome and evolve, like it would be pretty stagnant, right? It's good. Like when we look at conflicts as like, ooh, this is a creative stimulus. This is something that I've met this challenge on this level of the video game. It's like, oh, I've got to figure out how to kind of master this skill. To resolve this thing is to up level in some way, and ideally, next time I encounter something like that, oh, it's like, oh, I've already gone through that. I have this tool, I have this ability to address this self-devaluation, this thing. It's like, oh, we want to learn the lesson and move on. We want to integrate the knowledge, integrate the learnings and the wisdom so that we can, not encounter, if we encounter something similar, that we've got it. That same conflict couldn't happen again because I've become different, but yeah. And when things do happen, we just want to be aware. I want to be, and that's a great thing about this. We don't have to prevent conflict. You can't prevent it, for one. If you could orchestrate every detail of your life, you'd be bored to death. It's like, we want there to be the unexpected, but we want to respond resourcefully. We want to be in as much awareness as possible. Oh, I'm in conflict. My hands are cold. My feet are cold. I'm waking up at night. I need to find a solution to this in a swift way. I don't want to sit, and yes, well, tragedies happen. Heartbreaking things happen where you're just kind of like totally walloped with like tons of emotion and you're just in a whole state. It's like, yes, these things will happen. It's part of the human experience, but we don't want to sit in it. What is the quote? Like, we cannot sit and stare at our wound forever. It's like, okay, it happened, you're processing it. It's normal. But when we're living in harmony with nature, it's like, but there's still, plants to harvest, preparing for winter. We still have to sow the seeds. It's like nature would naturally have us like kind of move on into the next phase. I think we have so many luxuries that we can stay stuck in stuff a lot longer than we would if we were living natural, biologically oriented lives that people do. They get afraid of the off, so death, like, death is one of the big ones, obviously, that people really resist that, but that's not being in tune with nature, because winter comes and that's part of it. There's cycles that have to happen. We have to have the on and the off. We have to have summer and spring and winter. We have to have all of the phases, and if it happens suddenly and unexpectedly, obviously it can strike you in a certain way, but a lot of people don't have the skills to view it from a different perspective. And so, stuff will still happen. We will still lose people and situations and money, and shocks will occur. But when we have the knowledge and we understand how this emotional psyche experience is impacting our organs, it's like, I mean, that's the way I am with myself. It's like, all right, wrap it up. Like, listen, like, I know it was big. I know it was big. I know it was tough, but we got to wrap it up. Like, because you can milk it. You just have to tap into this for yourself. Like, you can milk a situation, you can lament it, you can think about it a lot, you can listen to music that reminds you of it, you can look at the picture. Like, you have the ability to amplify the emotional drama, and you feel it in your organs. Your biology doesn't know any different. It's like, okay, we're still in this, we're still in and the body's like, I'm still adapting, I will still help you, I will build these cells for you, I will renovate this tissue for you, because it's your faithful servant. Whatever the experience requires and demands, the organs are like, I'm here for it, but it's like, okay, self, we can sit in this, we'd probably be justified in staying in this feeling for a very long time, but is it serving us? Is it the best use of our time? Or do we want to, find a resolution, make peace with this, more swiftly, so that my tissues can go ahead and resolve and heal, and don't have to because that's the thing, every conflict has a time limit. And so we want to keep these conflicts as swift as possible. We want to resolve them. And so that's kind of how, we will navigate the life journey with this knowledge. It's such a great toolkit. It gives you direct insight into specifically how you felt about that thing that happened. And it's like, this is great. This is wonderful wisdom. And so let's gather it up and let's move on to the next, the next trial, the next challenge, the next obstacle that we need to, rise up to and evolve through.
What
Yeah,
better
thank you
meaning
so
for
much.
life? Yeah.
Well, maybe you can share again where people can find you, and yeah, thank you so much. It was
Yeah, any
really-
offerings and stuff, plug away.
Yeah, for sure. So drmelissacell.com, I have a YouTube channel, my Instagram, and yeah, we do a program called Awareness School a few times a year, which is just a wonderful deep dive into the psyche and how do I experience my life, and why do I sit in this thing, and what is my pattern of self-devaluation, and how, when I get into frustration and get stuck in these certain, it's like, it helps you to unravel and to see all of that from a very fun perspective that I have just found tremendously useful in my experience, which is why I love teaching the class, and it's amazing. And then I also have classes called Resolve, and they're all about how do I resolve an indigestible morsel conflict? How do I look at this thing differently? And so there's a whole library on all sorts of different, my partner Steve and I just kind of like diving into our favorite tools, ways of shifting these experiences and seeing it in a new way. And if you're specifically interested in like studying GNM more deeply, which I highly recommend, if you go to my website and go to the blog, there's a post called Getting Started, and just go there, and there's tons of resources, links and books and courses and things that you can take to deepen your knowledge, because really you need to have this map. I think that every single person, you need to know this map, you need to know how your body works, you need to know where, okay, UTI, where do I go? All right, territory marking, conflict, what was going, you need to be able to connect these dots, because without it, you're at a huge disadvantage and liability, because one symptom happens, and if you get scared, and it's like you can get sucked into a lot of fear, because really fear is the biggest problem. Fear and panic accelerates all adaptations. And so if your first reaction is fear and panic, rather than calm understanding of what exactly is going on in your body, unfortunately people get swept away with all sorts of, interventions and fear, and, and spiral into a place where they're like, how did I end up here? Well, it's because you didn't understand on the front end why your body was doing this, and you followed fear instead of understanding. And so I highly recommend dive into this for yourself, understand it for yourself, and yeah, you'll experience that peace and freedom that comes with like the understanding of, this is how my body works.
Awesome. Well, this has been super amazing. You're definitely like celebrity status in my like health world, and it's been awesome to kind of watch you blow up over the last couple of years and see it grow and reach new people. Like Dariya did a program with the Free Birth Society. She's the radical birth keeper, and then to see that those women found it is just like, yeah. Like, I just love seeing people discover GNM and just seeing it spread, and you're like, yeah, you're an awesome voice, and this was definitely like a bucket list, a guest to have for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys. It was super fun to chat. I really love the conversation, and yeah, thanks again.
All right, stop the record here.